It began on a cold, quiet night on Earth, the kind of night where the stars seemed endless and peaceful. But far beyond those stars, something was happening that would soon change the destiny of humankind. In a small control room at the Space Communication Division, a group of scientists sat surrounded by glowing screens and humming computers. Most nights were calm, routine checks of radio waves, data analysis, and silence. But that night something strange happened. A soft sound, barely noticeable at first, interrupted the static noise. It wasn't random interference, nor was it a normal space signal. It had rhythm, pattern, and structure, like someone was trying to say something. The youngest scientist in the room, Lena Torres, leaned closer to her monitor. "Wait, what is that?" she whispered. Her colleagues looked up, puzzled. The signal repeated. 3 long pulses, 2 short ones, then a strange sequence that resembled mathematical codes. Her heart started to race. They began recording it immediately, running the data through multiple filters and decoding systems. For hours, the signal continued. It came from deep space, far beyond any human satellite or known planet. When the decoding software finally revealed part of the message, silence filled the room. The message wasn't in any human language, but its tone was clear, urgent, frightened, desperate. One line kept repeating, "Help us. They are coming." Within minutes, the news reached higher authorities. The United Earth Communication Network confirmed the signal was not man-made. It was alien, the first real contact from another intelligent civilization. Governments went into emergency meetings. Scientists across the world began analyzing every detail. The signal's origin was tracked to a dying star system, several light years away near the edge of the Orion sector. The name given to it by astronomers was Epsilon Eridani IV, but now it became known by a new name, the Crying Star. As days passed, the message became clearer. It was indeed an SOS, a distress call. The unknown civilization described an attack by a race called the Drekor, powerful beings who destroyed worlds and consumed entire ecosystems. The victims begged anyone anywhere to help them. No reward, no demand, just a plea for survival. "If anyone can hear us," the voice said, "we are dying. Please, help." The voice was trembling, full of pain and fear, but there was also a strange hope hidden inside it. The hope that someone, somewhere, might still care. Humanity was stunned. For decades, people had dreamed of alien contact, but no one expected the first message to be a cry for help. Television screens, news channels, and online networks exploded with debate. Some thought it was fake, a trick made by advanced hackers. Others believed it was a trap. Maybe the Drekor themselves were testing humanity's reaction. But many, especially ordinary people, felt something deeper. They couldn't ignore the voice of fear and sorrow coming from the stars. In universities and scientific communities, experts studied the alien words and sound patterns. Linguists found traces of emotion in the voice that were universally recognizable. Pain, loss, hope. One scientist said softly during a press conference, "Even if they are not human, they sound like us when they cry." That line spread across the world, touching millions of hearts. The United Nations called an emergency session. All major countries sent their representatives. The hall was filled with tension, curiosity, and fear. Could humanity, a species still struggling with its own wars and divisions, help another civilization? Some leaders said Earth should stay silent. "We don't know what's out there," said one. "If we respond, we might bring danger to our own world." Others argued that helping was the moral duty of an intelligent race. "If we turn away," said another, "we become no better than the monsters who destroy them." Meanwhile, at the heart of the Space Communication Division, Lena and her team continued to receive updates. They noticed that the signal was growing weaker every day, as if the sender was running out of energy. "They don't have much time," Lena said. She felt a strange connection with the unseen beings, imagining what they must be feeling. Fear, loneliness, the fading hope of survival. In homes, schools, and cities across the planet, people gathered to watch live updates. Some prayed for the unknown civilization. Some wrote letters to their governments, urging them to respond. For the first time in human history, billions of people were united by one question: should humanity answer the call? After a week, the message stopped. The silence that followed was heavier than before. It was as if the galaxy itself had taken a deep breath and was waiting for Earth's decision. Scientists confirmed the signal was real. its data consistent with known laws of physics. It wasn't a hoax. It was a real cry for help from beyond the stars. That night, under a dark sky filled with countless stars, Lena stood outside the observatory. She stared at the heavens, thinking about how small Earth seemed in the vastness of space and yet how powerful the human heart was, the only heart known to feel compassion across galaxies. She whispered softly, "If we can hear them, maybe we are meant to help them." Her words later reached Commander Elias Ward, a decorated space officer and one of the most respected figures in interplanetary exploration. He had seen the worst sides of humanity: war, greed, and destruction, but also its best: bravery, unity, and mercy. When he heard the story of the SOS, something inside him stirred. "If they called us," he said, "then maybe we're their last hope." In secret meetings between world powers, plans began forming. Space engineers discussed the possibility of sending a long-range rescue fleet. It would take years to reach the dying world, but if they didn't start now, there might be nothing left to save. Scientists and soldiers both knew the risks: unknown dangers, alien diseases, the Drecker threat. But the idea of doing nothing was worse. Humanity, the so-called Deathworlders, beings evolved from the most dangerous planet known, might be the only one strong enough to help. The media gave humans that name long ago when it became clear that Earth was a death world, a planet full of dangers that shaped humans into survivors. Other species that had observed Earth from afar feared its inhabitants. They saw humans as unpredictable, emotional, and violent, but they never understood the truth. Those same qualities also made humans capable of love, courage, and sacrifice like no other. As the days passed, the debate grew louder. In the end, a decision had to be made. Should humanity remain silent, protecting itself, or should it risk everything to answer a stranger's cry? On the last night before the final vote, Commander Ward appeared before the Global Council. He stood tall, his uniform simple but his voice steady. "We call ourselves intelligent," he said. "We claim to be civilized. But true civilization is not proven by what we build. It's proven by what we choose to save." His words echoed across the hall, across news networks, across the world. If there is a life out there crying for help and we can hear it, then we are already part of their story. When he finished speaking, there was silence. Then slowly, one by one, the council members nodded. The vote passed. Earth would answer the call. The decision spread like wildfire across the planet. People cheered, cried, and prayed. For the first time in centuries, humanity had come together for a purpose larger than themselves. The stars above no longer felt distant. They felt alive, connected, waiting. As engineers began designing the rescue fleet and scientists mapped the coordinates of the crying star, Commander Ward stood beside Lena in the observatory. The night was still and the stars shimmered brighter than ever. Lena smiled faintly. "Do you think they'll still be there when we arrive?" Ward looked at the sky, his voice calm but filled with determination. "I don't know," he said. "But if they called for help, we'll go. That's what humans do. We fight for the light even when it's not our own." Far beyond the blue planet, among the silent galaxies, the faint echo of that first SOS still drifted through space. A message that had found its way to the only world brave enough to listen. Humanity didn't know what awaited them, but one thing was certain: the universe would never be the same again. The news of the alien SOS spread like fire across the world, and within days every corner of Earth was talking about it. Scientists, governments, and ordinary people all waited for one decision. Would humanity answer the call or stay silent? After much debate, the United Earth Council called for an emergency meeting known as the Council of Deathworlders. It was the first time in history that every nation, every leader, and every major scientist came together in one place, not to fight each other, but to decide the fate of another world. The great hall of the council was filled with tension. Giant holographic screens displayed the coordinates of the dying world: Epsilon Eridani IV, now called the Crying Star. A blue-green planet, half broken, surrounded by debris and fire. The alien message played once more, echoing through the hall. The trembling voice said, "We are under attack. They destroy everything. Please, anyone who can hear this, help us." The voice faded into static, leaving behind a heavy silence. President Amara DeLune of the Earth Federation stood up first. We have confirmed it is not a trick. The signal is real, she said. Now we must decide, and do we respond? Her question hung in the air like smoke. Some leaders whispered to each other. Others avoided eye contact. The weight of the decision was enormous. Responding to the call meant revealing humanity's presence to the galaxy, risking a war with unknown enemies. Staying silent meant letting an entire civilization die. At the front of the room, Commander Elias Ward sat quietly, his hands clasped. He was one of Earth's most respected military leaders, known for his courage, intelligence, and deep moral sense. He had seen many wars and led many peace missions, but this was different. This was not about borders or resources. It was about who humans truly were. As he listened, he thought of the first time he had seen the stars as a boy. Back then, he had dreamed that maybe one day humanity would reach beyond them, not to conquer, but to connect. The debate began. Dr. Isaac Chen, a famous scientist, spoke first. Commander, with respect, we have no idea what lies beyond that system. If we send ships, they could be attacked. We could lose everything. A general from the Eastern Alliance added, we don't know these aliens. They could be lying. What if this is a trap? What if the Drekker are already watching us? Another voice, a young leader from Africa, spoke softly but firmly. Or what if it's real? What if they are dying and waiting for us to help? Are we willing to live with that silence if we turn away? The room filled with murmurs. Fear and hope collided like storms. For hours they discussed risks, technology, possibilities. Some argued that humans weren't ready for interstellar missions of that scale. Others believed this was the moment destiny had been preparing them for. When Commander Ward finally rose to speak, the hall grew quiet. His voice was calm, steady, but filled with power. For as long as I have served humanity, he began, I've seen the best and worst of us. We fight wars, we destroy, we rebuild, we dream. But there's one thing that always remains. Our will to protect what's right. He walked toward the center of the room. They called us Deathworlders. They fear us because we come from a planet where everything fights to survive. But survival isn't the only thing we've learned. We've learned compassion in the face of danger. We've learned courage where there is fear. And we've learned that sometimes the strongest act of power is mercy. His words struck deep. Even the coldest of politicians looked down, moved. If they called us, Ward continued, then they believe someone out there can help. If we turn away now, what kind of species are we? What will the universe think of us? Monsters who only care for themselves, or protectors who stand for something greater? For a long moment the hall was silent. Then President Amara spoke again. If we respond, how do we do it? How do we prepare for a rescue that could take years? Commander Ward looked at her and said, we do what humans always do. We adapt, we build, we fight for hope. That sentence became the spark that ignited humanity's greatest mission. The council voted. One by one, nations agreed to unite resources. Factories that once built weapons were assigned to build starships. Scientists from rival nations began working side by side, designing the largest and most advanced fleet humanity had ever imagined. It would be called the Dawn Armada, a fleet of explorers, medics, engineers, and soldiers ready to travel beyond known space. For the first time in centuries, humanity wasn't divided by color, language, or power. The world moved with one heartbeat. Every country contributed something: metal, fuel, scientists, pilots. News channels showed images of humans working day and night. Children drew pictures of rockets flying toward distant worlds. Even prisoners volunteered to help build parts for the ships. The idea of helping another civilization touched something deep inside everyone, the simple truth that compassion was stronger than fear. But not everyone supported the mission. A secret group called the Isolation Front believed Earth should never interfere with alien affairs. They warned that helping others might bring destruction to humanity itself. Their leader, a man named Arkan Voss, declared, "You cannot save strangers in the dark without losing your own light." He gathered followers online, spreading fear that the Drekker would find and destroy Earth. Though small in number, their words reached many hearts filled with doubt. Commander Ward addressed this fear openly in a public speech. Standing before millions, he said, "Every time in history we've faced fear, we had two choices, hide or rise. If we had always chosen to hide, we would still be living in caves. But we chose to rise again and again. We are Deathworlders, born from storms, fire, and struggle. Fear doesn't define us. Our actions do." His speech went viral, uniting people once more. Meanwhile, Lena Torres, the scientist who first detected the SOS, became a key figure in decoding alien language. She worked tirelessly to understand more of the message. Hidden deep within the signal, she found fragments of coordinates and patterns that suggested more than one world had been destroyed by the Drekor. "It's not just one planet," she told the Council. "They're wiping out entire systems. If we don't stop them, it could one day be us." Her findings gave the mission a new urgency. The construction of the Dawn Armada accelerated. Engineers built hybrid propulsion systems capable of traveling faster than any ship before. Spaceports buzzed with energy, filled with crews training for long missions. Soldiers practiced not just combat, but rescue operations and alien first contact procedures. Doctors studied possible biological differences between humans and unknown species to prevent disease transmission. Commander Ward personally selected the fleet's captains. He didn't choose the strongest or most decorated officers. He chose those with empathy, courage, and balance. "We're not going as conquerors," he said. "We're going as guardians." His words became the fleet's motto engraved on every ship's hull: Guardians of the Lost. As the launch date approached, the mood on Earth was a mix of fear and pride. Families watched as their loved ones prepared to leave the planet, perhaps forever. The skies above major cities lit up with test flights. Children waved small flags with pictures of stars on them. News anchors called it the day humanity grew wings. The night before the launch, Commander Ward visited Lena at the observatory where it all began. She stood at the same spot she had on the night the signal first arrived, gazing at the stars. "Do you think they know we're coming?" she asked softly. Ward smiled faintly. "If they believed enough to send that signal," he said, "then they're still waiting. Hope has a way of surviving even in the darkest places." In that moment, as the two of them looked up at the infinite sky, it didn't feel like science or war. It felt like destiny. Humanity had been chosen by the stars not for power, but for purpose. When the Council officially confirmed the mission the next morning, the announcement was broadcast worldwide. "This is Earth," the message began. "We have heard your call. We are coming." Billions of people watched as the first of the great ships rose slowly into the sky, flames lighting up the dawn. The sound echoed across continents. Mothers cried, children clapped, and even skeptics watched in awe. Humanity had finally done something no species had done before. Answered a call from across the galaxy not with fear or greed, but with courage and compassion. As the ships disappeared into the dark beyond, Commander Ward whispered to himself, "We are Deathworlders, yes, but we are also protectors, and this time, the galaxy will know the difference." No one on Earth knew what awaited them beyond those distant stars, but one thing was certain. The Council of Deathworlders had made a decision that would echo through time, proving that even on the harshest world in the universe, humanity still carried the brightest heart. The journey through space was long, silent, and filled with endless darkness. The Dawn Armada, a fleet of shining ships built by the united effort of all humanity, moved like a trail of stars cutting through the void. Inside each ship, humans prepared themselves for the unknown. There was fear, yes, but also excitement, curiosity, and pride. They were not traveling to conquer, but to save. Every person on board knew that they might never see Earth again, yet no one turned back. They carried with them the hope of an entire planet and the prayers of billions who watched their departure with tears and admiration. Commander Elias Ward stood at the bridge of the lead ship, the Horizon. Before him stretched a canvas of stars glowing softly in the black sea of space. "Navigation check," he said calmly. His voice carried authority but also warmth. "All systems ready, Commander," replied Lieutenant Lena Torres, now serving as Chief Communications Officer. The same woman who once heard the SOS now guided the fleet through the silence of the universe. For months, the ships traveled through wormholes and gravitational corridors. The crew trained daily, ran system checks, and studied every fragment of the alien message they had decoded. The closer they got to the coordinates of the crying star, the more anxious everyone became. There were moments of wonder, too. They saw worlds of ice and fire, fields of glowing gas, and drifting ruins of long-forgotten civilizations. Each view reminded them how small humanity was, yet how far they had come. Finally, one day the radar caught something, a faint energy signature. "We're approaching the system," Lena announced. The command deck went silent. Commander Ward leaned forward. "Put it on screen." The image appeared, a dying planet surrounded by burning clouds. Massive scars covered its surface. Cities lay in ruins, and the atmosphere flickered with orange and red like a storm that never ended. "Dear God," whispered one of the pilots. They had arrived. The crying star was real, and it was dying. As they descended closer, sensors detected signs of life beneath the planet's crust: underground shelters, weak energy signals, and fading life readings. "There are survivors," Lena said, her voice trembling with emotion. Commander Ward nodded. "Then we're not too late." The fleet landed on the planet's surface. The ground was scorched and cracked. The air was heavy and filled with the smell of ash and burnt metal. Teams wearing armored suits stepped out cautiously. The sky above was red and filled with drifting debris. The sound of thunder echoed across empty valleys. Humanity's boots touched alien soil for the first time, not as conquerors, but as saviors. As the rescue team spread out, they began searching for the survivors who had sent the SOS. Hours passed before a faint signal appeared on the scanner. Following it, they reached a half-collapsed bunker. Inside, in the dim light, they found them, the Lurani. The Lurani were fragile-looking creatures, tall and thin, with pale blue skin that shimmered faintly like glass. Their eyes were large, almost too expressive, and filled with fear. When they saw the humans, they backed away at first. To them, the Deathworlders were legends, violent beings from a planet where even the air could kill. They had expected monsters. Instead, they saw people kneeling to offer them water, food, and light. One of the alien children hid behind its mother, trembling. Commander Ward slowly removed his helmet, showing his human face tired but kind. He spoke softly through the translator. "We're here to help." The device translated his words into the alien tongue. The mother hesitated, then stepped forward and touched his hand. "You heard us?" she asked weakly. Ward nodded. "Yes. And we came." That moment became history, the first peaceful contact between humanity and another intelligent species. The rescue operation began immediately. Human engineers set up medical tents and oxygen systems. Doctors treated the wounded Lurani while soldiers helped rebuild damaged shelters. The Lurani were shocked to see how humans worked. Fast, efficient, and fearless. Even when the ground shook from distant explosions, the Deathworlders didn't stop. They carried alien children on their backs, shared their rations, and protected them like family. Lena recorded every moment through her camera. "They called us Deathworlders," she said softly to the log. "But if they could see this, they would know we're not monsters. We're just humans, stubborn, hopeful, and unwilling to give up." Days passed, and the bond between the two species grew stronger. The Lurani began to trust their human rescuers. They shared stories about their home, once a paradise filled with forests of crystal and oceans of silver-blue water. But the Drekker came, a race of brutal conquerors who destroyed everything in their path. They had no mercy, no emotion, only hunger for domination. The Lurani tried to fight back but were too weak. In their last hope, they sent that desperate message into the void, never believing anyone would answer. When they learned that humans had crossed galaxies just to help them, many of them wept. "Why?" one elder asked Commander Ward. "Why would you risk your lives for strangers?" Ward looked at the burning horizon and said, "Because once we were also alone, and we swore we'd never let another world die if we could stop it." But their peace didn't last long. One night, the sky turned dark and the sensors detected movement. Large metallic objects entering orbit. The Drekker had returned. The same monsters that had destroyed the Lurani world were back to finish what they started. Their ships were massive, black, and shaped like claws. The ground trembled as the first bombardment hit. Explosions lit up the sky. The Lurani screamed and ran for cover. Commander Ward immediately took command. "All units, defensive positions. Protect the civilians." The human fleet rose from the surface, engines roaring. For the first time, humanity was about to face an alien enemy in battle. The Deathworlders didn't hesitate. They had come to save, not to run. As the Drekker ships descended, the humans opened fire. Blue plasma streaks tore through the clouds, colliding with the enemy fleet. The battle began with chaos. Missiles, explosions, and flashes of light across the burning sky. The Drekker were powerful, but they had never faced humans before. They didn't know what Deathworlders were capable of. Lena watched the fight from the ground, her heart pounding. She could hear the screams of the wounded and the roar of the ships above. But even in that chaos, the humans didn't break. Pilots communicated calmly. Soldiers moved in perfect coordination, and medics carried the injured Lurani to safety. Humanity had trained for this, not for conquest, but for courage. Commander Ward's voice echoed through the communication channel. "We hold the line. No retreat. We fight for them." His ship, the Horizon, led the defense, targeting the largest Drekker cruiser. The impact shook the air. "Direct hit!" shouted his second-in-command. But the enemy kept coming. On the surface, Lurani survivors watched in awe. They had never seen such bravery. They saw humans running into danger, not away from it. A Lurani elder whispered, "They fight like storms, yet they protect like light." Even when human ships were hit and crashed, the soldiers who survived crawled out of the wreckage and kept fighting, their bodies bruised, their suits torn, yet their spirit unbroken. That night, the Lurani stopped fearing the Deathworlders. They started believing in them. After hours of battle, the first wave of Drekker retreated temporarily. Smoke covered the horizon and silence returned, heavy and haunting. Hundreds of human soldiers were injured, but they had saved the Lurani from total annihilation, at least for now. The aliens came out of hiding, looking at their human saviors with tears in their eyes. Commander Ward stood among the ruins, his armor scorched, his voice tired. "This isn't over," he said. "They'll come again." Lena nodded beside him, her face covered in dust. "Then we'll be ready," she said, "because now they're not alone anymore." As the sun rose weakly over the broken planet, humans and Lurani worked side by side to rebuild once more. The children of the Lurani began calling the humans Star Guardians. The name spread quickly, a symbol of hope in a universe filled with fear. For the first time since their destruction began, the Lurani laughed again. They sang songs in their soft, shimmering language, songs of gratitude for the strangers who came from the stars to save them. That night, as the survivors rested and the stars shone faintly through the smoke, Commander Ward looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there, the Drekker were preparing for another attack. But he wasn't afraid. He turned to Lena and said quietly, "You remember when you first heard their message?" "Yes," she replied. "I thought it was just a cry for help." Ward smiled faintly. "It was more than that. It was a call for faith, and we answered." Above them, the fleet glowed like fireflies in the darkness, standing guard over the wounded world. The Deathworlders had come, and they had changed everything. The galaxy, once full of silence, now knew the sound of humanity's heartbeat, strong, defiant, and full of compassion. The skies above Earth had never been so crowded. After decoding the alien SOS, nations forgot their borders, rivalries, and politics. Everyone worked together as if a new purpose had suddenly been born inside humanity. Massive starships rose from the launch pads of America, Russia, China, and Europe. They were not meant for war this time, but for rescue. The world called this mission Operation Dawnlight. Its goal was to answer the cry for help from the distant star system that had sent the Galactic SOS. Inside one of those ships, the Horizon Spear, Captain Mira Khan stared out of the observation deck. Her heart raced as she watched Earth shrink into a blue dot. She was not only a soldier. She was a symbol of what humanity had become. Every crew member with her represented the very thing that made humans different from any other known species. Courage that thrived under chaos. When everyone else ran from danger, Deathworlders ran toward it. The journey to the alien system was not easy. Even with new fusion drives and experimental warp rings, it would take several months. The crew trained daily, learning alien languages, studying galactic maps, and simulating rescue strategies. But more than that, they prepared their minds. Nobody knew what waited for them at the end of the signal. Maybe it was a trap. Maybe a dying world, or maybe a war beyond imagination. The signal itself was strange. It carried layers of pain and emotion that felt almost human. When decoded, it said only a few words. "Help us. They are consuming the light." Scientists argued about what it meant. Some believed they referred to an alien parasite. Others said it was a metaphor for a dying sun. But deep down, many had the same feeling, that this was something humanity was meant to face. When the Horizon Spear entered the last warp gate, the crew saw the star system at last. It was dying, The sun was surrounded by something unnatural. Massive dark shapes like smoke clouds but solid, moving slowly around the star as if eating its light. The nearby planet, the one that had sent the SOS, was scarred with black lines and half of it burned. The moment they got closer, thousands of messages flooded their systems. Alien voices cried out, some begging, some warning. Mira ordered silence. Then she said the words that became history. "We're not turning back. Prepare landing sequence." They landed near a ruined city. The structures were made of crystal and silver, shining weakly under the dying sunlight. The air shimmered with energy. Strange machines lay broken and bodies, alien bodies, were everywhere. But a few survivors crawled from the shadows, weak and afraid. Their skin was pale blue, their eyes large and full of fear. One of them stepped forward, trembling, and placed his hand on Mira's arm. "You came," he whispered in a voice full of disbelief. "No one ever comes to help Deathworlders." Mira smiled sadly. "We are Deathworlders," she replied. The aliens looked confused. Then slowly, understanding showed in their eyes. They had heard stories of Earth, of the planet where life had to fight every day to survive. To them, humans were a legend, the strongest beings in the galaxy. But legends didn't usually arrive in starships. Yet here they were, real, breathing, and offering help. The survivors explained everything. Their planet, once peaceful and full of light, had been attacked by a species known only as the Eaters. They were not biological creatures, but energy-based entities that fed on radiation, light, and life itself. When they arrived, they consumed everything. Planets died in silence. Civilizations vanished without a trace. The aliens had sent their SOS across galaxies, never expecting anyone to reply. Now they looked at the humans as if seeing hope for the first time. Mira and her crew set up a command post. Engineers repaired alien generators while medics treated the injured. Soldiers guarded the perimeter. Scientists studied the energy field of the Eaters, realizing it was unlike anything in physics. The more they learned, the more terrifying it became. The Eaters weren't just killing light, they were spreading it into darkness, transforming reality itself. Days turned into weeks. The humans and aliens began to work together. The aliens showed them how their technology worked, and humans showed them how to fight back with strategy and courage. There were moments of laughter, of shared food, of tears when they remembered those who didn't survive. Slowly, a bond was formed, not between species but between hearts. One night, when the dying sun dimmed again, Mira stood outside the base looking at the stars. Commander Lewis walked up beside her and said, "You know, ma'am, this might be the first time in history we came to save someone, not fight them." Mira nodded. Maybe that's what makes us human. But their peace was short-lived. The scanners picked up movement, hundreds of dark energy signatures closing in fast. The Eaters were coming again. Mira gave the order to prepare all defenses. She broadcasted one message to every human ship nearby. "If we fall, make it count." The battle began like a storm. Energy waves struck from the skies, shaking the ground. The humans fired plasma cannons and missile barrages, but the Eaters absorbed most of it. Every time they were hit, they split into smaller shadows and multiplied. It was chaos. Yet the humans didn't give up. They fought as only Deathworlders could, relentlessly, fearlessly. At one point, Mira saw an alien child hiding under a collapsed wall. Without thinking, she ran through the burning ground and shielded the child with her own armor as debris exploded around them. Her communication link broke, but she didn't care. That moment reminded her why they had come. To protect life, no matter what form it took. The Eaters began surrounding the base. Energy shields flickered and failed. Mira called for emergency evacuation. But before they could launch, something unexpected happened. The alien survivors activated a massive crystalline tower in the city's center. It glowed with brilliant light cutting through the darkness like a sword. "This is the heart of Lumora," one alien shouted. "It's our planet's core." It responds to courage, it amplifies it. The humans and aliens fought side by side, channeling the light toward the tower. As their combined energy grew, the Eaters began to scream, their shadows tearing apart. Mira realized that the light wasn't just a weapon. It was hope itself, magnified through unity. When the battle ended, silence filled the air. The skies cleared. The star began to shine again, faintly but surely. The Eaters were gone. The aliens wept, some falling to their knees in disbelief. Humanity had done what even the most advanced species in the galaxy couldn't. They had fought for someone else's survival, not their own. Captain Mira recorded her final report before leaving the planet. "We came as strangers," she said, "but we leave as brothers and sisters in light. If anyone hears this message, remember, sometimes the smallest spark from the harshest world can save the brightest stars." When the Horizon Spear departed, the aliens raised their hands to the sky in gratitude. The message of that day spread across galaxies, that Deathworlders were not monsters or warriors of destruction. They were protectors of life, forged in struggle, and capable of compassion beyond measure. And somewhere in the stars, as Earth's fleet returned home, the universe itself seemed to whisper in awe. Humanity had changed everything. The Galactic SOS had not just been answered, it had rewritten the story of what it meant to be alive. When the Horizon Spear returned to Earth, the entire planet was waiting. The mission had been live-streamed through fragments of communication and video footage transmitted from deep space, and humanity had followed every second of it. People had prayed, cried, and cheered together. But when the ship entered Earth's orbit again, something had changed, not just in the crew, but in the hearts of all humans. They were no longer the same species that had once fought over borders and beliefs. They were now united by something bigger, a shared understanding that they were not alone in the universe, and that their courage had meaning beyond their world. Captain Mirakan stood at the ship's bridge, staring down at the glowing curve of Earth. Her eyes were tired, but her spirit burned stronger than ever. She remembered the alien planet Lumora, the place of crystal towers and dying light. She remembered the faces of those who had survived, their gratitude, their tears, and their promise. "We will never forget the Deathworlders." As Horizon Spear landed, thousands gathered to welcome them. Cameras flashed, banners waved, and the world leaders stood shoulder to shoulder. For the first time in human history, no one argued about who deserved credit. The mission belonged to everyone. The faces of the crew appeared on every screen, and their names were whispered with awe. Mira walked down the ramp in her white suit, dust from Lumora still clinging to her boots. The president stepped forward and said softly, "Welcome home, Captain. You didn't just save a world, you changed the galaxy." But Mira shook her head. "We didn't save them. They saved us from our arrogance, from our loneliness, from forgetting what it means to be human." Those words spread faster than light. People quoted them everywhere, in schools, on walls, and songs. Humanity had finally found its purpose again. In the following months, a great alliance began to form. The message from Lumora had traveled far and wide. Other alien civilizations that had once ignored Earth now reached out. They sent envoys and gifts asking for friendship and cooperation. For the first time, humans were not the outsiders, they were the example. The galaxy called them the Guardians of Light. But behind all the celebrations, the crew of Horizon Spear carried the weight of what they had seen. Many couldn't sleep. They dreamed of the shadows of the Eaters, the endless darkness, and the cries of those who didn't survive. Mira herself often stood by her window at night, looking at the stars and wondering if the Eaters were truly gone, or if they were only waiting. One night, as she stared at the sky, her communicator buzzed. It was Dr. Wren, the ship's chief scientist. His voice was calm but urgent. "Captain, you need to come to the base. You should see this." When Mira arrived, the lab was dark except for the glow of a holographic display. Wren zoomed in on a star map, far beyond Lumora. There, flickering faintly, was a new signal. It was weak, almost like static, but the pattern was unmistakable. "It's another SOS," Wren whispered. "Different system. Same kind of energy signature." Mira felt her heart tighten. "The Eaters?" Wren nodded slowly. "Or something worse." The room went silent. Around them, technicians and analysts stared at the signal as if it were a ghost. They had barely survived one encounter. Now the darkness seemed to be spreading again. For a moment, Mira didn't speak. Then she turned and looked at her crew, who had gathered behind her. "We made a promise," she said quietly. "If anyone calls for help, we answer. That's who we are now." The others nodded. They didn't even hesitate. Despite their fear, they knew the truth. This was their destiny. A few weeks later, the second expedition began. But this time, humanity wasn't going alone. Ships from other worlds joined the fleet. Lumaran crystal cruisers, Zalorian energy vessels, and several more whose shapes defied human design. The galaxy had come together, inspired by the courage of Deathworlders. Before launch, a global broadcast was made. Mira spoke again, standing before the United Fleet, her voice steady but full of emotion. To those who fear the dark, she said, remember, light isn't born in comfort, it's born in chaos. We are from Earth, the world that never gives up. If the shadows return, they will find us waiting. People from every continent, every nation watched her speech. Children saluted, soldiers stood at attention, and elders prayed. It felt as if the entire human race had found a single heartbeat. The fleet left Earth once more, engines lighting up the sky like a second sunrise. People watched until the last spark faded into the blackness of space. No one knew if they would return, but everyone believed they would try. Months passed. Messages arrived occasionally. Reports of exploration, of contact with new civilizations, and of small victories against the spreading darkness. The Eaters, it seemed, were not only creatures but part of something deeper, a cosmic imbalance feeding on despair and fear. Every world that gave up hope became fuel for their growth. The humans and their allies discovered that the only true weapon against the darkness was unity. Wherever hope, courage, and sacrifice existed, the Eaters weakened. It was as if the universe itself favored those who refused to surrender. Mira led her fleet into countless battles. Not all of them won, but every loss taught them more about the enemy and about themselves. Her name became legend across the stars. Some called her the Light-Bearer. Others called her the last Deathworlder. But to her crew, she was simply Captain Mira, the woman who never turned away from a cry for help. Years later, Earth had changed beyond recognition. The stars were no longer unreachable. Galactic languages were taught in schools, and children dreamed not of fame or fortune, but of exploring the unknown. Statues of the Horizon Spear stood in cities across the world, and every year people lit lanterns in memory of those who never returned. But the greatest change was not in technology or exploration. It was in the hearts of humans. They had learned something that could never be forgotten, that even the smallest act of courage could echo across galaxies. One day, decades later, a museum was built where Horizon Spear had first launched. Inside, an old woman sat quietly before the ship's preserved control panel. Her hair was silver now, her hands wrinkled, but her eyes still shone with the same fire. It was Captain Mira Khan, now retired but still restless. A young student approached her shyly. "Ma'am," he said, "is it true what they say? That the first SOS changed everything?" Mira smiled softly. "Yes," she whispered. "It wasn't just a signal. It was a test. The universe was asking if we were ready to care about something beyond ourselves." The boy frowned slightly. "And did we pass?" Mira looked up at the stars beyond the glass dome. Somewhere out there, she imagined, another voice might already be calling for help. "We're still answering," she said. That night, as she left the museum, a shooting star crossed the sky, bright, beautiful, and fleeting. She paused for a long moment, then whispered a silent prayer for every soul still fighting in the dark. Humanity's story was no longer about survival. It was about purpose. They had started as Deathworlders, creatures forged by a harsh planet, feared by others, misunderstood. But in the end, they became something far greater, the light in the universe's darkest hour. The galaxy would remember their courage forever. And whenever a new world sent a cry for help, the stars would echo the same promise: help is coming. The Deathworlders are on their way.